Hi, everybody. A quick pod lecture on mixing audio and the difference between gain and volume. This lecture shouldn't take very long. I'm using the exercise files given to us by LinkedIn Learning. I like that it's a nearly complete edit timeline. And what you can see looking in here are 4 video tracks, 4 audio tracks, and a timeline that's relatively well cut together. If I use the accent grav key or the tilde key, I can see this in full screen eventually. There we go. And I can open and close various tracks, A1, A2, V1, V2. Now, when I minimize these tracks, um, you'll notice what happens is that my volume controls go away in audio editing. And so many beginning editors don't know that or don't see that, and so they'll go to do a volume edit and they won't see a volume control and they'll get frozen. They won't know what to do. So in that case, it's just a matter of opening up your volume controls, and you see now bars that tell you volume levels across these edit points. So let's go back to full screen edit system. We have our bin, we have our preview window, our program window, and our timeline. And again, what I'm seeing in this timeline are 2 pieces of video. Remember, video always shows the top layer, and audio always mixes between all of the layers of audio. And that way you can play sound effects, dialogue, music, nat sound, all that stuff can go mixed in together on different tracks. And you do a mix down to get the final version. So first, a note about gain versus volume. And I think it's useful to think of gain as the audio coming into the system. How loud was it coming into the system? How close were you standing to the speakers at the concert where you're recording? And gain will tell you how loud the audio is in its original form. And then volume is an adjustment to audio that either raises or lowers the intensity of the volume on the way out of the system. So gain coming in, volume coming out. Now, if we look at any one of these clips, we see gain is made clear by the waveform itself. And the higher the waveform goes, the louder the gain. And so if you look at this clip versus the other, this one appears to be, from its look, a little bit louder, right? This clip, I want to close this, but not so much that we lose our control. So this clip appears to be a little bit louder. I can right click on this and I can go to, where's my gain tool? Audio gain. And I can just raise the gain by any number of decibels. This is a cumulative tool. So if I do it once and I raise it by 1 decibel, and then I do it again and I raise it a second time by 3, the total gain will be 1 plus 3 or 4 decibels. But let's see what happens to the waveform if I go up by 3 decibels. And we can physically see the waveform grow. And now when I play this out, my guess is that the audio is going to be peaking too hot. So let's just do that. I'm going to play this out and let's see where the audio is peaking in our volume meters over here. It has to be right, and that's only because you have your mind switched on. So it's still fine. It's still fine. It's a little hot, right? And so if I were doing this for real, I'd probably go back in. I'd go back to audio gain. And now because I increased it by 3, I'm going to do -2 this time. And now my total increase is only 1 decibel of gain. I see that in the meters. I bet it's closer to 12. Yeah, so it's closer to 12, right? Okay, so that's how you adjust between gain and volume. And what you're looking for is a waveform that looks like it has peaks and valleys, but that's essentially down the center area of the gain control or the waveform control. So a waveform that looks like this is really good. Now let's just say I'm going to take this one here. I'm going to reduce the gain by 10 decibels and watch what that meter looks like. So I'm going to do -10. Would never do this in real life. But see how low that waveform is? That's telling my eye as a producer that that's too low, that there's probably an issue with that, a problem. I go and I play that, and now I'm peaking at minus 24 instead of minus 12. So I'm essentially 8 decibels too low. So I can control Z out of that. I go back to normal. It looks normal. Okay, so now I want to talk about manipulating volume controls as part of an audio mix, and then I'll end this pod lecture. Now, typically, you do an audio mix using the volume control at the very end of your process. You've done all of your interviews, all of your B roll, everything's cut together. You've made an exact film. You want it to look exactly as it is, all graphics. That's called Piclock, and Piclock is an industry term used by everybody, meaning that I, the producer, will not change, or I, the director, will not change this movie in its duration, in its look. Characters will speak at exactly the same time, down to the frame every time, so that an audio engineer can, if they want, can take this whole thing over to Audition or other audio software and do a final audio mix between music, sound effects, dialogue without something going out of sync. Because if I were to post Piclock, make a change in my movie, and my audio editor were working from the old file, everything after that change would be out of sync. Because, like, say I took out 2 frames, everything else in the movie after that is now 2 frames out of sync, a disaster. So when you agree to Picklock, you as the director are saying, I'm not changing anything, I'm done. Okay, so we have Picklock. Now it's time to do our audio volume mix. We want to change to the pen tool. Really, this is the only use, or the best use, for the pen tool. And what this is for is inserting keyframes. A keyframe, remember, is something that happens at an exact frame, and then mixing between the keyframes. And so I'm raising the volume here. And let's say, for example, I have music to this point, I have music to this point. I want the volume to be low during the music. That's how I would do that kind of mix. I tend to work in groups of 4, though. So just because I like to be neat. So that's what a final audio mix will look like, assuming that there's a music track here down on, say, A2, and music here. I'm boosting the volume, finish the phrase, bring down the volume, bring up the music. So this pen tool is how you achieve an audio volume mix. And so remember, gain coming in, audio going out, and use your pen tool to make those audio keyframes actually in your timeline.